Much of like a background do you want? Like how far back we going?
No, up to
Like
you.
to the beginning, Lion King? Or
Yes. How did your parents meet?
Okay, we gotta go really far back. No, no, I'll just give like a brief. I've always been really competitive, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to start the timer. Okay, sorry to. Okay, go ahead.
All right. No, I've always been like really competitive and always like to compete in things, and not even. I've always just wanted to see like how good I can be at things. So like back in probably like, I don't know, junior high or high school and stuff, I used to get really obsessive with things. I have a very obsessive personality where it's like I have to like eat this, and this. I have to work out this much time. I have to study this much time. I have to have perfect grades. I had to get myself to a point where it was like, I have to give it like 100% just to see, because then you can look back and be like, okay, well, that was my limit. I've always wanted to know like the limit. And so that like I kind of like developed that personality. Probably when I was like 13 or 14 is really when I like started getting obsessive. I just didn't know how to do anything. And so it's just like get out there and give it 100, but I was like running in circles because I didn't know what I was doing. But and so that's kind of led me, I guess, to where I am now, where now I'm a competitive powerlifter, where that's kind of where I've honed a lot of my energy is into like strength training and strength coaching. Because now I was telling you I do that strength coaching business. I help people get as strong as they can. But powerlifting, if you don't know, it's a squat, a bench, and a deadlift. And you get 3 attempts, and you squat as much as you can, you bench as much as you can, and you deadlift as much as you can. And so like if your best squat is 750 pounds, best bench is 450 pounds, and your deadlift is 800 pounds, you add those together and you get your total.
Okay.
And so your total is what wins it.
Okay.
And so over the last like 4 years I've been into powerlifting, it's just been like, how big can I get my total? Like, and I don't want to be a big like 300, 400 pound like powerlifter. So I compete in the 220s. And it's just like, how strong can I get into the 220s? And then I don't know after that. I'm not there yet. So I don't know where I'll get if I actually get there. But
So what are you at right now?
so my best squat in competition right now is 722. Best bench is 424. My best deadlift is 788.
Okay. It's like 1600, something like that.
It is best total is 1922.
Close. I was
1923.
trying to do some quick math.
Yeah. And there's like
almost 2000 then.
Yeah, that's the goal. So like in powerlifting world, like if you had a 2000 raw total, raw meaning like you just use a belt, you don't get any equipment that aids you in the lift. That's like a big deal. And so like in the 220 pound category itself, only 6 people have ever done that in the history of the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Have done 2000 total.
Have hit 2000 or more.
Oh my gosh.
Altogether. So right now with a 1923 total, I rank 11th best all time that's ever done it.
Dang.
And so I'm getting ready. So right now I'm getting ready for a competition in Buffalo, New York. That's in the end of September. That's like the next one I'm really working for, where I really want to surpass that 2,000 pound total, which will be really cool. So this meet too that I'm doing in September, it's called the Showdown. And so the way that this meet works is, so you get your total, right? And then you also have to weigh in for the competition.
Right.
And so based on your total that you do and what you weighed in at the competition, you get what's called a Wilks formula. And your Wilks formula determines like how good of a powerlifter you are, right? It's kind of like this coefficient score. And so to get into meets in general, you have to hit like a qualifying Wilks score. And so the Showdown, this is the first time they've taken it where they're like, okay, we're going to take 30 men, 30 women, and we're going to take the top 30 in the entire world Wilks. It doesn't matter what weight class you were. We don't care about weight classes. We're going to take the top 30 Wilks. We'll put them in this. We'll take the top 30 women, and we'll put them in it, and we're going to put on like the biggest Super Bowl of a powerlifting meet ever. And so I barely made it,
Yeah.
but I made it. I'm like the worst out of the best.
So what number were you?
Like out of the top 30 or
Uh-huh.
like I probably like 29th or 30th, like right.
So you're in the top 30 basically body ratio to strength. Is that what it is? Like weight to weight lifted?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah. It's like pound for pound, how good of a lifter are you?
Okay.
And so, yeah, and so there's like people coming from like Russia, Australia, New Zealand, England, whatever. Obviously a lot from the United States. You all come together and you duke it out, and whoever wins gets it's like a $50,000 prize, which is really cool, but I'm not going to win that. But.
So is it also weighted in the competition by your weight? Because like your Wilks score could be high because you were lighter and stronger, or is it just flat who gets the highest total?
No, that's a good question. So this, there's a couple different prizes that you can get, right? And so for the big grand prize, it's whoever gets the best Wilks score. So you'll have to weigh in at the competition. You'll put up your total. And so there ends up being like a lot of strategy for the people that are really close to the top. Mm-hmm. Like for example, one of the best powerlifters in the world is Daniel Bell. And he's like 400 pounds. Like he's a huge dude, but he also squats like, I think in his last competition, he squatted 1,003.
Oh my god!
And so he's huge, but he lifts so much weight that his Wilks score is still really good, right?
Yeah.
But so now you're taking a 400-pound guy and you're comparing him to like, and probably the best powerlifter in the entire world Wilks-wise. It's a guy named John Hack, just from Wisconsin. Okay. And he's like 198 pounds and is totaling over 2,000 at 198 pounds. And so currently has the world record for the best Wilks.
Okay. But it's cool because he's the lightest who can get the heaviest.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. And so it'll be really cool because he's going to try to come weigh in at the lightest he can. Daniel Bell's going to try to weigh in the lightest he can. And they're both going to sit there and be like, okay, if he gets this on his squat and I get this on my squat, okay, I'm keeping up, I'm ahead. And then like, it's cool because then you have to sit there and like calculate, like, okay, what do I need to deadlift on my last attempt to beat it? And sometimes it just comes down to like a kilo. And it's just like, it gets really crazy. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. And so that'll be a really, really big meet. But yeah, it's really cool because now you can take people from like Russia that's, I don't know, a 240-pound guy from Russia or like a 165-pound guy from Guatemala, and they're all coming together and you're like, okay, let's duke it out. Like who's the best pound for pound? Doesn't matter if you're a little guy or a big dude. There is like, you can compete in powerlifting, which makes it
that is fun. So cool. So like wrestling, like people always say about wrestling, well, I can't do it because I'm like not big and strong, but the whole point is
there's weight classes. Yeah, and it's cool too because it's like being able to take like a 132-pound wrestler and somehow being able to compare him to the super heavyweight and being like, who's the better wrestler? You'll never be able to know, right?
Right.
But this is a way to kind of like give it your best, like kind of the best idea. Yeah.
So how much does that extra mass help with weightlifting? Like, I mean, obviously extra fat's not going to be good, but like just extra muscle mass is going to help you that much? Yeah.
So like, I mean, Daniel Bell, I think in his last, we could pull, so there's this website, it's called openpowerlifting.org or com, I can't remember. But every competition that's ever been done since like 1967 is recorded in there, and every single person like has a profile. So you can click on their profile, see every meet they've ever done, and you can see their ranking and everything. And so if we looked up Daniel Bell's right now, I think he probably weighed in like at 419 pounds, and he's probably like, I don't know, maybe 6'1", right? So at 6'1", there's no way you're going to be all muscle at 419 pounds, right? Like, even if the dude was juiced out of his gills, right? There's just no way. But what's interesting is that he used to compete at a lighter weight, about 350 pounds. And the difference between him being at 350 pounds and him being at like 420 pounds is mostly fat. I mean, he probably, I know, if he gained 70 pounds, he maybe put on 20 pounds of lean mass. We'll say 50 pounds of fat, right? Sure. But somehow, and we don't really know why, I've never had anyone give me a good answer, but the extra weight helps you move more weight. Right. And I think part of it is just because like if let's say you're trying to squat or like bench, I don't know, whatever weight, if you weigh that amount, that weight has less like leverage and control over you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like if you take a 165-pound guy and he unracks 500 pounds on his bench, that is so much more weight that is like he does not have the leverage on as a guy that's like 400 pounds. It's like almost doing a push-up for him, right? Mm-hmm. And there's just like less of a give take, because not only does that guy have to like control it and not let it like throw him around just because he weighs so little, and the other dude, it's a lot easier.
Yeah,
that's my best explanation. I don't really know.
I mean, it makes sense to me with the deadlift, just like the physics of it, because it's like leverage. Like you're saying.
You kind of you almost sit yourself back too, right?
Yeah.
What's the weirdest about that though is that helps you the least.
Really?
Like, so if you look, like as you gain weight, the deadlifts kind of go down.
Really?
Yeah. So like the best in powerlifting, and somebody that knows lifting is gonna be like, well, what about Thor? Thor does equip deadlifting.
Did you see equipped? Is that what you said? Yeah, because I did watch that. Does that just mean he has like the suit on?
He's got a suit on. Okay. Yeah, and he's got the straps, and he does it on an elephant bar. So Thor actually did a actual powerlifting meet where he competed in powerlifting. Mm-hmm. So he deadlifted 1104, right? A couple weeks back in his suit.
Equipped, yeah.
Right, but in his powerlifting meet, he deadlifted like 917.
Okay.
And so there's like this big discrepancy between like and I think there's two big reasons for that. Is one, when you get that big, it actually gets really hard for them to get down because they got this big old belly that's in the way.
Right.
Thor, that's not really the problem. And two, it gets really hard to hold on to their bar because they get these really thick, meaty hands and they can't hold on to the bar.
Right.
And so, and some of these guys, they actually bench so much, like Daniel Bell again, he might bench 600 pounds, right? And their hands actually swell up after. And so, yeah, it's really weird.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like the I don't know if it's the pressure or what, but their hands like swell up and it gets even harder to hold on to the bar. Mm-hmm. So those super heavyweight guys are really, they're deadlifting 700, maybe 800 pounds when that's like a typical deadlift for like a 242 guy.
Yeah.
In fact, the biggest deadlift that's ever been done in a powerlifting competition right now was from a 242 pound guy.
What? Really?
Yeah, Jamal Browner. He's this like super twitchy, like crazy explosive. Like if he was playing basketball, he'd probably have like a 50-inch vertical. Like this guy is nuts.
So he's not like meaty. I mean, you said 240.
Yeah.
How tall is he?
Man, I haven't met him. I don't know. You'd probably guess maybe 5'10"-ish.
Oh, okay, so I guess
pretty normal, right? Yeah. I mean, he's meaty. He's like, if you saw him, you'd be like, oh, that's a big dude, right?
Right.
But he deadlifted 970, which is like ridiculous. Yeah. And you watch him.
Unequipped, I'm guessing.
Unequipped. Yeah, this is raw. Yeah.
So is that just like the big distinction between powerlifting and anything else? Is that powerlifting is all unequipped?
No, so there's different divisions in powerlifting. So there's raw powerlifting, which right now is probably 95% of the competitions that happen.
Okay.
And then there's equipped powerlifting, which can be single ply or multiply, which just, it's all kind of the same, but it's like you get to wear these things that help you.
So I've seen like the suits and everything like that.
Yeah. And when you see them and they walk out, oh yeah, they'll also have like those wraps around their knee.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And just a bunch of things that help them lift more weight, which isn't really like my thing, but some people like to, cause like for me, like the most I've ever squatted in the gym, was 738, and you walk it out and it's heavy. Like it's like, you're like, my whole rib cage feels like it's like kind of crowded. It's like hard to take a breath. And I'm like, why would I want to put on more equipment to put on more weight on my back? Like this already hurts, you know? Like I don't want to put something that's going to make me have to do like 300 more pounds than this, because this is already like, it's already brutal. But yeah, and then strongman is kind of, so like in powerlifting there's really, really strict rules, right? Like your squat, you have like side judges that have to make sure that your hips come down below your knee and make sure it's like a deep enough squat. Your bench has to be paused. You have to wait for a press command. And your deadlift has to be clean. You can't hitch it, which hitching is like, you'll see like kind of the strongmen do it where they're kind of like really pushing it back and forth to get it to come out.
You can't do that?
You can't do that. And strongman is more like, we don't care about how clean you do it. We just care about who's the strongest dude and who's got like the most willpower.
Yeah.
So powerlifters are kind of soft. Strongman's just like, I don't give a what you're doing, get it up, right? You just it's like, you know, any means
hurt
necessary.
Yourself, like,
doesn't matter.
Bust your shoulder, just get it over.
Just get it up, yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of, and strongman's a little bit more athletic too, where they have to like run or lift stones or pull a train or something crazy. Like it's just like all these random things where you can't really. Like your training can't get that specific, right? Because if all you're doing is squatting and deadlifting, then your body's only going to be ready to squat and deadlift.
Yeah.
And then they're like, okay, you got to go do a push press with a log. And you're like, well, shoot, I haven't done any of that. So they have to be like, do all these things to make sure they're like very well-rounded strong.
Yeah.
Which is why you'll see a lot of strongmen not maybe be able to squat as much of a powerlifter, because a powerlifter, all we have to do is like squat, bench, deadlift.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can get really, really specific.
I've wondered about that actually because I've watched strongmen. Like I've watched Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw and Thor, and I've always wondered like why don't they do powerlifting meets and stuff like that.
Yeah. So one, there's a lot more money in strongman. Like Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, Thor, that one, the guy that just won it this last year. He's from
I can't remember
Los Angeles. He's got a weird name.
Yeah, I just barely had heard it too, but I always forget. Also, the Zildrunas guy.
Big Z.
Big Z is good for like forever.
Oh, yeah, he's a freak.
But he's not still doing it, right? He's retired.
He kind of... I think he's probably done now. But he won like 13 Arnolds or something ridiculous.
I thought I saw a picture of him like really skinny or something. Just assumed he was done.
Yeah, he probably is. Yeah, he's a freak. But anyway, yeah, those guys are... there's a lot more money in it. And so like if you're world's strongest man, you get the title of like the strongest man in the world. Right. And there's a lot of like Rogue puts a lot of money into that. SBD puts a lot of money into it.
What's SBD?
It's just like an apparel. So if you look at the equipment they wear, like they wear these elbow sleeves and knee sleeves, and they'll say SBD on them. It's just a equipment company on their belt, like stuff like that. But there's like a lot of companies that put a lot of money into it. It's on ESPN. It's everybody knows who Thor is. Like
Thor's super famous. Eddie Hall is super famous.
Yeah,
I think Brian Shaw's pretty famous actually.
I think just about everybody. I mean, if you're into the strength sports at all, you know who Brian Shaw is.
Yeah. And those guys, the I guess just like the look of those guys as compared to the look of powerlifters. Maybe this is completely ignorant, but just from like my little knowledge, it always seems like powerlifters are like as small as you can be as with being as strong, like you were saying. So you'll see like a lot of not like skinny guys, but like smaller guys who are crazy strong.
They're just like really jacked and like So like I mean, if Thor wanted to, he could come over and dominate into powerlifting.
Right.
But the other thing is like if you look at Thor, he's like 8 foot tall and 600 pounds, right?
Yeah,
it's like
a monster.
And like and Brian Shaw, I mean, I think Eddie Hall's the smallest and he's like still 6'3", right?
Yeah, and he was like 400 pounds still.
Yeah.
Massive guy.
Eddie Hall would probably do the best, but you'll notice like the best powerlifters in the world are relatively short and compact. And you get better leverages that way, right? Like if you think about it, if a dude is squatting, and you have like if you were gonna go like lift up your car or go pry a rock, you're going to get a big old lever, right? You don't want some small lever. You want like this really big lever you can pull down to get the rock up. That's like why you don't want to be tall in powerlifting, because you're putting that weight on top of your shoulders, and like the longer your back and the longer you are, the bigger of a lever. So you'll notice like these tall guys just kind of like fall over. Yeah. But like
I struggle with squat for that very reason.
Yeah, you're tall.
It's like I'm like swaying in the wind.
Yeah. Like even me, like I'm 5'11", and like these other guys that are 220 that I'm competing with in this meet in September are all like 5'6" and like 230, 240. And
well, also, isn't it just a shorter range of motion? Doesn't that make it easier? Like you don't have to squat as far, you don't have to lift as high if you have shorter arms.
Yeah, I mean that does play a pretty big part too. You'd be surprised like how much not a difference there is, because like we'll use this little tracker that shows you like what you look like when you're squatting. And like for me, my squat depth I think is like 25 inches, like from the top to the bottom is 25 inches. this guy that's 5'6" actually might only be like 24, 23.
Oh, okay.
Maybe an inch makes a big difference. But I think a lot of it is just not having to get as leaned over. So, because it really kind of bites you. But like, because now like Thor is like 400 pounds, I think maybe 420 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But some of the biggest, strongest powerlifters in the world are like that same weight, but like 6 foot.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you get a little more bowling ball look, right?
Yeah.
And like one of the goats of powerlifting is Eddie Cohen, and he's like 5'4".
Yeah.
And he competed at like 242. So he's just like a walking tank. You know what I mean? Like, and like a lot of these guys will do a like a sumo style deadlift too, where you kind of like spread your legs out as far as you can, and you just don't have to go very far. But yeah, it's like a powerlifter would never do well in a strongman competition, but a lot of the strongman guys would probably still.
It's easier to come from that direction.
Yeah, I think so. Because a lot of those guys are athletic, but if you're gonna take a little 5'6", like 250-pound dude, he's not gonna. And he's like, "Okay, pick up the stone and put it up here." He's like,
yeah, and like chuck like a kettle like over the thing or a keg. You know, I see him do all those crazy things.
Because like Thor, if he grabs like a keg at the bottom of the ground and he reaches all the way up and throws that thing, right? He's got probably like almost 8 feet that he gets to put torque into that, right? Yeah, he's putting power into that for like a long time, which really can generate a lot of force. But if you're like 5'6", it's like, cool, there it goes.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You have to throw so much farther.
Yeah, I mean, he could have this. He could be able to generate just as much power and be just as powerful, like, but not be able to get that to move as far. Yeah. So that height and athleticism really comes in handy in strongman, but you don't need it in powerlifting.
I wonder where do you think CrossFitters fit in this whole thing? Like, can you transition from strongman or from powerlifting to CrossFit, or is it like a totally different thing?
So CrossFit is it's a lot like it's kind of like strongman in the sense that you have no idea what the competition is going to be, but it's almost like taking more of the strength out of it, right? Yeah. And it's kind of like a more cardio version. CrossFit, yeah. I think CrossFit is kind of like maybe more of the kind of strongman, but like strongman light, right? Yeah. Where it's like all the guys that don't want to be 400 pounds, but they still want to do like kind of that random fitness. Yeah. Like where it's like, okay, I think it is kind of cool because it's like, okay, I can't over prepare for something. So skill doesn't matter quite as much as like my talent, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think is really cool. But yeah, it's like, I think that powerlifters are kind of like the people that aren't athletic enough to be strongman, but don't want to do cardio, like CrossFit. Right. Yeah. So it's kind of like the people that are just like, look, I just want to lift as much as I can possibly lift for like 1 rep, right? Like I just want to see how strong I can get and be super, super specific. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, I mean, powerlifters are kind of like the least athletic. The group.
No, it is interesting to see like the personalities that go into the three. Yeah. It seems like you were saying, powerlifting is like almost like more obsessive because like, hey, I only have these like 3 things and I have to do them as perfect as I can. Yeah. And CrossFit is like more wild. Yeah. You know, like the people who do that too seem to be more wild. It's like, oh, I might be running a mile, I might be swimming, I might be, you know, cleaning, I might be squatting. I have
you literally have no idea. Yeah.
And then the strongmen are just like they're just like eat turkey legs off the bone. Like, you know,
they're like modern day Viking kind of thing.
They're just a little bit. They're like the crazy ones. I feel like.
Did you ever watch like the YouTube videos with Brian Shaw where it show like how much he ate in a day?
Yes.
Oh dude, it's ridiculous.
And like they have that guy, like a normal sized guy that comes with him. And he like tries to eat with him.
Oh dude, it's horrible.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So do you have to do that for powerlifting?
Kind of, cause like, I mean, I guess you never have to, but like for me, I'm like 5'11", and if I want to be as strong and as competitive as I can be in a weight class, I need to be able to like make my best leverage as possible, right? Right. So like for me, eventually, I think I'll probably end up being a 242, like try to get myself up to like 250-ish. Because that's more of like where I fit into. But so like my natural, like if I just ate when I'm hungry and that was it, I would probably, I usually am about 180 pounds. And so for me, if I need to force myself up to like, because right now I'm like 221, 222-ish. And I'll probably try to get myself up to like 228 for this competition, because you get like a 24-hour weigh-in. So most people are like 10, 20 pounds above their fighting weight. It's kind of like UFC or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask that. So you weigh in and then you like get bigger or in like the 24 hours that you have?
Yeah. So like a lot of guys, so like for example, one of the really, really, really good 220 guys I'm going to be competing against in a couple months is Joe Sullivan. Mm-hmm. And Joe is like 5'6" and walks around at like 245 pounds year round.
Wow.
But he competes at 220.
Okay.
And so like the week before the meet, he's still weighing like 245, right? Does this really big water cut. I don't know, maybe his takes more than a week, but generally it's about a week. You do this big water cut, you sweat it out, you weigh in 24 hours before the competition starts. And then these guys, some of these guys that are really competitive, their eyes look sunken in, they're like on death's door. And you're like, you alive? Like, and so you literally have this group of like nurses ready to give IVs to like revive these people.
Oh my gosh.
And so I've never really pushed it that far, because this is the heaviest I've ever been right now. This is like this 220-ish range, because I usually weigh like 212 to 214-ish, and I've never been into the weight cut, so I'm like, I'll just keep trying to get bigger and I'll compete in this. I just haven't really gotten into that. But if you really want to get competitive, now you have to like really get good at the water cut too. Like try to make the most out of it. But yeah, I can't remember what we were talking about before the water cut thing.
I can't remember. I think it was CrossFit, but
yeah.
Or no, how Brian Shaw.
Oh yeah, Brian Shaw. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I was saying is for me, what I started doing is like, okay, I'm at like 185 pounds. That's my like kind of natural body weight if I'm not really thinking about it. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I need to get a little bit bigger. And so I would start and make my whole meal plan. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going to try eating 3,000 calories, I don't know, 70 grams of fat, 300 carb, and 250 protein. I don't know, something like that, right? You just kind of, you have to start somewhere though and be like, okay. And one of the biggest mistakes people will do though is they'll start stepping on the scale every single day. They'll be like, oh, I'm 4 pounds heavier today. This is bad, Or like, they'll be like, oh, I'm 3 pounds lighter. Because sometimes you actually eat a really big meal, and you'll actually allows your body to pee out a lot of liquid. Mm-hmm. And so the next day you might actually be a little lighter. And you're like, oh, my metabolism's awesome. And you're like, well, no, you just
not quite.
Yeah. Uh-huh. It's like I better up it again, and then they up it to like 4,000 calories, and then like 3 weeks later you're fat, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's like okay, so then I might weigh myself like every like Saturday morning and keep track of it for like 6 weeks, and I'm like, okay, I'm still 185, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll bump it up to 3250, like maybe just a little more. Then I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to gain just a little bit of weight. You don't want to gain it too fast. So basically I did that over like 4 years. And now I'm to a point where I'm like eating, it kind of depends on the period, but I'm eating somewhere between 4,000 and maybe 4,700 calories a day, which is uncomfortable because, you don't want to eat it with like, I don't know, ice cream and peanut butter, or it'd be pretty easy, right? Yeah. Like that's like, you're like, actually, that's like 2 cups of peanut butter. That's not that bad, right? Because you're trying to eat it like as clean as you can. You're trying to hit all your micronutrients. So you have to kind of eat it with like, I don't know, potatoes and spinach and vegetables. You're trying to like get, your fruit in, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, now I need to drink 2 gallons of water too. And then you're like, whoa, you just feel like bloaty all the time, and just gets uncomfortable. But yeah, not to the extent of like what Brian Shaw does, but you definitely are uncomfortable.
So do you split it up into like a bunch of different meals? Do you have the same routine every day? How does that work? Yeah, so I eat almost the same thing every day, and then I leave myself room for what I call discretionary calories. Mm-hmm. So for example, right now I'm with the meals that I have planned, which is over the course of 5 meals for me. That's just what I like to do. And then I'll leave myself, and that ends up being like,
I don't know, like 4,150 calories, basically 4,200 calories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll leave myself about 300 with what I call discretionary calories, where I kind of go by fill. And so sometimes I might get to the end of the day and I'm like, that's all I needed. I'm good, right? And there's sometimes I might be like, I feel very carb depleted, so I am going to eat some extra fruit. Or maybe I'll even, I don't know, you just kind of like, I'll make some oatmeal. Or maybe one day I'm like, you know, I'm craving, I don't know, a cookie. So you eat a cookie or something. You kind of, but that 300 is just kind of that, like, go by feel thing. And so, yeah, I eat just about the same thing every single day. I'm very routine oriented. I'm very like, everything's very organized, and like I have to make sure everything's like good to go. Like even with my training, I have this this little tool that it sticks onto the end of a barbell, and it tracks the speed of the barbell, my power output, and my total work capacity. And it actually even measures my bar path and stuff too.
Wow. And
it all comes into my iPad, right? And then it stores it into my iPad. I'll save the workout, and then I'll put it into a Google Sheet. So then I can just look at it, put it into a little graph, right? And I'm like, okay, power output's going up. Okay, we're looking good. Or like power output's starting to come down. It's like, okay, time to deload. I'm overworking myself, right? And stuff like that. So I'm very like particular about things.
No, I can imagine. What is that called? Is it that program? Is it an app? Is it?
Yeah, it's called Flex Stronger. And it's just this little. I actually just have it in the bag. You want me to pull it out?
Sure. Yeah.
You can take a look at it. But
yeah.
It's pretty cool. And I'll even pull out the app. I have 2 gym bags because I'm a mess. It's my OCD. So this is the unit, and so you'll take it out, and it's just a little magnet, right?
Okay.
So it'll stick on the bar. It comes out really easy, and so when you turn it on, right? These lasers go on a 360, and so it kind of just picks up everything, gets it like this 360 view. So as it's moving, it can pick up your speed, and then show you like what you're moving like, and it'll store it into an app. Want to see what the app looks like?
Yeah, sure. Love to. Flex, powered by Gymaware.
So here's like my squat today, right?
Uh-huh.
I haven't even actually downloaded this yet. So like my top set of squat today was 639 pounds, and I did it for 5 reps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So see like this first one, went really well. This is a pretty normal decline. I mean, your 5th rep's never going to be as fast. And so then I'll come over here, and you'll see the power through the whole set. If you go here, you can see like my workout. So this is kind of how all my sets went, right?
Right.
And so you'll notice on set 6, all of a sudden it was like, ooh, right? Yeah. You see how it kind of drops off there? Then I know, okay, we're probably getting to.
So is this like a set of 3? This is a set of 2. This is a set of 5.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's each one of your reps throughout the entire day.
Yeah, and that'll show like, okay, you're squatting 24 inches. It's pretty normal, and then it'll get to bar path and see like.
Oh dang.
Yeah, so you see like first rep was like it was fine. Second rep's good. Third set's good. All of a sudden 4 and 5 are like, ooh, it got a little wonky, right? Usually from fatigue. Ooh, that's not what I wanted. But it's cool because then you can come back and be like, well, my 2nd or my 4th and 5th also slowed down quite a bit, you know? Yeah. So is that due to fatigue, or is it due to just getting out of form? So then I'll go back on the camera and be like, let's see what I can see, right? So I always film everything. But yeah, I'm kind of a little bit of a nerd about it.
No, I think that's so cool. I did not realize that you could do that kind of thing.
Yeah, and so now here's like my history, and I can be like, I'll go back eventually and name this, and I can go through and be like, oh, what's my, I don't know, whatever it is. Come through here and look at my squats, or come look at whatever.
So can you do all different types of workouts? Could you do all 3 with this?
Yeah, so here's all so we'll go train. These are all the workouts it does, right? Like you can do your bench, your incline bench, your pause bench, your pin press, your spotto. Like it's got like a million things on here that you can use.
Dang.
Yeah.
That is sweet. That is so high tech.
Yeah, I can even do like your jumping and stuff like that. Yeah, so you'll just kind of hook it onto a it's kind of like this pant, and you jump with it, and it'll show you like, you actually suck at jumping. And you're like, okay, I didn't know you could have bad jumping form, but yeah.
That's funny. And it's what, like, has your, like, how high you jump?
Yeah, like your power output, like how long you're sitting on the ground, or because what it'll end up doing is building what you can do with this is build a strength curve. And a strength curve is basically how quickly you can recruit your muscle fiber and get it to contract, right? How powerful are your contractions? Mm-hmm. So if you took somebody really, really explosive, like if you took Michael Jordan back in, 94, and he's jumping from the freaking free throw line, right?
Yeah.
His strength curve is going to look something like, it's going to be this really big spike where he can recruit his muscle fibers very quickly, mm-hmm. where like your x-axis is time, right? Mm-hmm. Y-axis is just like, you'd cap it off at 100 to like 100% of your muscle fiber recruitment, mm-hmm. and how long it takes. So like Michael Jordan's going to be like, mm-hmm. right? He's just really explosive, can recruit things really quickly. You might take somebody like, slower lineman in the NFL, right? And right. He comes off the line, engages with his defensive lineman, and it takes him a little while. So the strength curve takes like, and comes back down. So like in powerlifting, or like if you're working on your vertical jump, or even working on your sprinting speed or whatever, it's all about trying to shorten your strength curve. You're trying to make that slope pretty much as vertical as you possibly can. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, this can kind of help you like, am I making improvement? Because a lot of times you'll find out like, this is my normal slope basically, right? And then if all of a sudden it's like a lot worse, you're like, okay, my CNS is fatigued.
Yeah. It's
like the first sign of CNS fatigue is your power output comes down. So if I notice on here, like my power output's down at a normal weight that, it's a lot faster. I'm like, okay, I'm pretty fatigued. It's time to like step back, just deload a little bit. And yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What is like the routine? How does it change when you were approaching a meet? Like obviously I'm sure you're not like going crazy heavy right before a meet, right? Like how does that curve change?
No, yeah, good question. So anytime you are peaking for anything you're doing, you want to go from being not very specific, right? So for example, let's say I'm training you for a competition, right? And you want to do your first powerlifting competition. You haven't lifted before, and so we're 20 weeks out. If we're 20 weeks out, what we want to do is look at where are you weak, right? Where are your weak spots with your squat? Or maybe your quads are really strong because you're really good at jumping, but your hamstrings are very underdeveloped, mm-hmm. right? Maybe you don't know how to fire your glutes through in a deadlift, or maybe your spinal erectors are really weak, or whatever it is, right? And so for like that time period until when you're that far out from a meet, you're being almost like a bodybuilder, where you're trying to like sculpt yourself and fix your weaknesses, right? Mm-hmm. And so you're trying to build up the muscle that is very weak. So that kind of looks like higher rep, a little bit lower weight. For me, I like to kind of focus on two different training styles at once. So like let's say you're really slow too. Like I'm watching you squat and it's like, man, you're not explosive, mm-hmm. right? And so I'm like, okay, we need to work on his speed, and we also need to grow some muscle, right? And so you're kind of going back and forth on those, where you're like, we need to get you bigger, and we also need to get you more explosive. Mm-hmm. And so you're really going hard on those, and those will indirectly affect your strength, but we're not peaking it yet, right?
Right, yeah.
So when we're this far out until maybe, and it depends on the person and how long of a peak they need. Let's say like for you need 10 weeks for a peak. Once we kind of get about to that 10-week mark, all of a sudden, instead of doing like maybe for you were only doing a total of 10 sets of squats a week, mm-hmm. because we weren't too worried about like developing the technique of your squat, and we were more worried about developing certain muscles, and you were doing maybe like 30 sets of accessory work.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like, I don't know, lunges or glute ham raises or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So now that you kind of flip-flop that when it gets into that peaking time where you're getting more and more specific. Mm-hmm. Do you ever watch SpongeBob?
A little bit, not really.
Okay, so there's this one episode where he's like getting into like this fine dining, right? He's like, you need to forget everything except fine dining and breathing, right? And so SpongeBob goes into his brain and he like starts setting everything on fire. Have you ever seen that?
I think I've seen a meme of that.
Yeah.
Actually. Yeah.
That's basically what peaking is.
Okay.
Is you're like, okay, I know we did all this crap to get you stronger, but now like I only want you to be able to squat, bench, and deadlift. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a sprinter, it's like I only want you to be able to like come out of the blocks and sprint. Mm-hmm. Or like you basically you're telling your body like don't worry about recovering for this. So you've probably seen jokes about like you can't do cardio as a powerlifter, right?
Yeah.
Like it kind of is true when you get down to the peak.
Mm-hmm. But then, not true before that when you're doing the accessory work.
Yeah, good cardiovascular can actually really help you with recovery and increasing your work capacity. Meaning like you can recover from more and do more work. More work is always going to be more stronger.
Right.
Like, it's really simple. Like,
so what do you do for cardio during that time period? Do you jog?
It depends. It depends on the person and what their goal is. If it's somebody that like doesn't have a lot of muscle mass and we're really just trying to put on muscle mass, it's probably going to be like maybe a little bit of slower stuff because we're so focused on just building the muscle. If it's somebody, like I have one guy right now that I train who was a bodybuilder for 15 years. Okay. Got his pro card. He was like really good bodybuilder, but he's the least explosive person I've ever seen in my life, right?
Right.
And so you're like, okay, this dude needs to like sprint. We need to teach him to be an athlete. So his cardio might actually include sprinting intervals or hill sprints or even stair climber sprints or box jumps or sled pushes, like kind of being an athlete, right? Where you're like, maybe even jump roping or whatever. It's something that's a little bit quick, a little bit twitchier. And then it also depends on preference because like, even if I'm like, hey, I need you to do, these many sprints 3 times a week or whatever. Yeah. If he hates it, that's not going to be good. Right. It's like worthless. Yeah. And so something is better than nothing, but you should get specific based on to what your goals are. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like the general guideline. And so the more you want to build up your capacity as far as you can, because there's one thing I really live by when I'm coaching people. It's called your maximum recoverable volume, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're, and I have to be really, one of my jobs when I'm, coaching people is I got to figure out where is their MRV, maximum recoverable volume, right? And if their maximum volume that they can recover from is very low, the first thing we need to do is be able to expand that.
So what does that mean that you can recover from?
So like, let's, like if we took a 60-year-old lady and we had her do 3 sets of 20 bodyweight squats, that might be too much for her to recover from if she's been sedentary for 40 years. Right? You
mean like she'll have a really bad reaction? She'll be sore for a long time?
She'll be really sore and she'll actually have such a low protein synthesis rate that her body will not be able to replenish its muscle that was damaged by the time the next workout comes around.
I see. Okay.
And so it's kind of like, do you ever play Need for Speed? So Need for Speed, you get like this booster button or even Mario Kart, whatever, right? Yeah. You get the boost button. And if you just sit there and hold it down, it never replenishes, right? Right. That's kind of like working out aimlessly where you're just like, I'm going to work really hard and that's it. Like you're just holding down the turbo button and you never recover, you never get better.
So basically like you wear yourself out so much that by the time you come back to work out again, you haven't even gotten back to where you were. So like you're kind of just like getting worse.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah. Okay. You kind of start coming in and you feel fatigued or you might even feel achy. Like you just don't feel like working out. And sometimes that's okay. Like sometimes that's what you need. Mm-hmm. Like even for me, I could feel great all the time. And, like,
okay, sorry.
Like I could be doing all the right things, eating well, sleeping well, whatever. And sometimes you just don't feel like working out and that's just how it is because we're humans and
psychological maybe even more than anything.
Right. And that is just like this mental thing where you're like, look, I have a goal, I gotta get through it, right? But then there is a real fatigue limit, and that is where it gets tough to like to track, right? And so that's where these kind of things come really helpful, or watching video comes really helpful, because you can watch it and be like, that person has got, they're missing that little, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, we need to back off. And so if they can't handle very much volume, like I might get a new person and he's like, yeah, I want to squat 500 pounds, right? Or like I'm going up to the U to play football and I need to get stronger. Like, coach says I gotta get stronger.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know, I'm gonna, you know, you're 18 years old or whatever, 250 pounds, you're an athlete. I have a pretty good idea of where your MRV is going to be. You know, you kind of have like an idea of like, okay, you can probably handle X amount based on your normal, just being like a normal 18-year-old guy that's in shape, right? And so you kind of guess, and you just have to track it like, okay, things are going down. Okay, or things are going up way too quick, you know? And you're like, let's just keep throwing on more, you know? You're kind of just like throwing stuff in the fire, like, what can you handle, you know? There's some kids, you're 18, and being 18 is basically being like on steroids. Like, your test level is really high, everything's really good, so you're just like, okay, we're going to keep throwing it. But you always kind of want to start there, and you got to kind of bump it, and then you figure out where it is. And so, but if it's really low, if I get this kid, I'm like, okay, you should be here. And I start giving him stuff, and it's actually down here. I'm like, okay, we really got to be able to bump up what you can recover from. You're basically out of shape, right? And so it's like, okay, let's get so that's actually a really good time where you're like, okay, I need to throw in a little bit of cardio because he just has to be in better shape. And sometimes they're actually even in pretty good shape, but they're not eating very well. Because there's something called an mTOR pathway, which when you work out, it's a gene in your body that basically you can think of it as like a dimming light switch, where all of a sudden it goes all the way up, right? And for about the next, 6 to 24 hours, it slowly starts to dim down. And when that's on, you are recovering. Your body recovers. So two things that can keep that on is, one, working out, because that stimulates it, and two, protein. And so if there's not enough protein in your system, you will not be able to recover. Do you know how that whole protein synthesis works?
I've heard that a bunch, but I don't know how it works. No.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to break it down like really. I don't know. Maybe I'm going too detailed.
No.
Okay, but what you got to think about is like when you're making a new muscle, it's kind of like you're beating a necklace, right? And so you get this string, and that's like a new muscle fiber or like a broken down muscle fiber. And amino acids are like a bead. So it's like you have this bucket surrounding you of 20 different colored beads. Red, orange, yellow, pink, whatever, fuchsia, right? And there's a couple that get used a lot more than others. But long story short, if you don't have beads, you can't make a necklace. Right? And so, you've probably heard like essential, non-essential amino acids. So like if this kid is in crazy good shape, but all this, he's not eating any protein, it's kind of like breaking buildings down, but not having anything to build it back. Yeah. And so you have to make sure you have enough protein available so you can take like these beads and keep stringing it together. Like, the amino acid supplements. I don't know if you've ever seen those. I've seen them. Yeah, so those will have the three most common bead color, basically. Like you could say that's red, blue, and green or whatever. And there's like 10 times more red, blue, and greens than every other color. And so that's why you get the amino acid supplement, is because it just kind of replenishes the ones that are used the most. If you have a good diet, though, it's pretty useless. Like you won't really. It's the supplement need it. Right? Yeah. So if you have a good diet, it's kind of like the purpose. Exactly. Yeah. You like even protein powder. It's like if you got your diet cleaned up, probably don't need it. Right. But it's also convenient if that's a hard thing to do. I know you said before that you eat the same thing basically every day. What is it? What do you eat? Okay, so every morning. Gummy bears and cotton candy. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that sums it up. Cotton candy, gummy bears. That's it. So every single morning I eat, first thing in the morning I'll eat 7 ounces of steak. Okay. Every single morning. Usually cap sirloin, which is just like, it's just a sirloin steak, basically. And then I make this thing I've nicknamed it Raihoko.
Okay.
It's rice, honey, cottage cheese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you heat up the rice really hot, you throw in a little bit of honey, you throw the cottage cheese in, mix it together, I throw it back in the microwave, get it kind of warm.
Why the honey? It's
just for the extra carbs. And so for me personally, I can eat a really big breakfast, take my blood sugar, and it's still going to be like in the 50s, 60s, which is pretty low. Like I'm pretty hypoglycemic. Mm-hmm. So first thing in the morning, I just try to get some sugars going. Like try to get my blood sugar to a somewhat normal level. So like my diet actually has quite a bit of sugars in them to like keep it going. I eat a lot of ground beef and rice. I'll do like a fruit smoothie, which includes like Greek yogurt, a little bit of honey again, spinach, and then just whatever fruit I feel like. Like right now, I'm on a strawberry banana kick or like a blueberry banana kick.
That's what I've been doing too.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite. And then, yeah, I mean, that's actually the gist of it is I'll do a lot of ground beef and rice, a lot of steak, and a lot of like potatoes and then fruits and stuff like that. And
that'll kind of be your, 4,200 roughly that you said, and then you've got the extra discretionary that's just whatever you feel you need.
Yeah, and so by the end of the day, I usually eat like 1.5 pounds of just red meat.
Okay.
Yeah, which I know like a lot of people out there are like, red meat's bad, it's gonna clog your arteries. It's not true at all. It's actually really good for you. It's actually been like shown to help your cholesterol levels.
Okay.
And stuff. So anyway, but even if it did increase my cholesterol levels, I'd probably still eat it because it's really good for your strength. And
yeah.
I like it. It's way better than chicken breast. Like,
how do you feel you would change your diet if you were bodybuilding? Do you know kind of how they diet? I mean, obviously you cut a lot, but
no, yeah, that's a good question. I'd probably keep a lot of my base in there. So and it would depend on how close that bodybuilding competition was for me, right?
Right.
So like if I'm like a year away, it's probably not going to change too much. If anything, I'd probably throw in a little bit of extra carbs and protein and try to grow a little bit better because I'd probably want to fill in. Because I'm like, right now, I wouldn't do well in bodybuilding because I'm disproportionate from powerlifting.
Right, yeah.
Like my legs would probably be like kind of overshine my upper body. I probably need to grow a little bit more.
And a lot of times bodybuilders don't like deadlifting as much because they want like a slimmer waist in proportion to their chest and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it. Like Ben Pollock, he's a really good powerlifter.
Yeah, I was just thinking about him. Yeah, because he transitioned into bodybuilding at least for a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he just wanted to do a bodybuilding show just to basically say I did a bodybuilding show.
Right.
And he sucked really bad.
Yeah.
He's jacked, right?
Yeah,
the dude is jacked. He's super lean all the time, but he didn't do great not because he wasn't lean enough or he wasn't muscular enough, but because of his core. Like his core is so thick. He's got like a 38-inch core and no body fat on his entire side. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And so that's kind of...
It's like his abs are like all the way out here. Yeah. I didn't know he didn't do well because I thought he looked amazing.
No, I mean, and to the normal person, you'd be like, dude, that guy looks awesome. But there's a very specific criteria that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like your arms and your calves are supposed to be the same size. Like your peak of your bicep and your calf is supposed to be the same size. You're supposed to have like, your legs are supposed to be a certain proportion to your core and like blah, blah, blah. And so he looked great, but for bodybuilding purposes, not so great. And then the other side of that is you have to be very good at posing. And he just
and it's like a confidence and like, I mean, that's its own skill, right? Like posing and kind of being in front of the audience and stuff.
Yeah, in fact, there's some people that you're like, that guy looks way better than that guy, but he's better at posing, so he wins.
Yeah.
And you're like, but that guy looks freaking jacked, you know?
I know, it's kind of a weird sport, isn't it? Because what are they really competing on?
Yeah, it's very subjective. Yeah. You're like, I don't know why that guy won, but I guess he won. Yeah. But like in swimming or sprinting, it's like that guy won because he's the fastest.
Like no one cares if he's the most popular or the most charismatic. It's just who got there first.
Yeah, but like maybe this guy even did stuff for like his community and people love him, so he kind of gets a little bit of it.
He has a better smile and a better tan, and like he
seems more extroverted.
Yeah.
Yeah, those things can all. They're not supposed to, but they do, you know? And sometimes even like relationships with like the judges or maybe this judge thinks that like this part is way more important than this part, and so it kind of favors one guy.
Yeah.
Where if you would have got a different judge, maybe it would have got leaned a little bit different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I probably would never do bodybuilding because of that. But as far as the diet goes, it wouldn't change a lot. More of what would change is my style of workout. Because I already like eat well enough. I might lower it a little bit if I needed to. If I was really close to a competition, I'd start, leaning out. I'd probably start eating a little bit more of, because right now I eat very calorie dense food, right? I throw honey into my rice because it's like 120 extra calories that I eat, even though the volume of food wasn't any bigger.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so, but in bodybuilding, you do the opposite because you feel like you're freaking starving all the time.
Yeah.
So there's this hormone in your body called, two hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and they're like, antis of each other, right? Kind of like insulin and cortisol. You can't have both in there at the same time.
Right.
Like one will dominate the other. So it kind of as one goes up, the other has to go down. If you have leptin is very high, you feel very full and satisfied. You feel like you don't need to eat. Ghrelin's really high. You feel like you can eat everything in the world. Mm-hmm. So when you have any ounce of body fat that you have on you stimulates leptin. So more body fat, more leptin. And so as you get leaner and leaner and leaner, your leptin starts going down and your ghrelin comes up. And when you eat, leptin goes up too, right? But these guys will get so lean that even when they eat, leptin's like, right? It just doesn't go anywhere. Uh-huh. And so you're starting to try to get creative with your foods and trick your body. Where you're like, okay, there's always that joke of eating ice cubes or eating lettuce or something. But
or eating with a baby spoon so that it feels like you're eating longer and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so instead of throwing in honey into stuff, all of a sudden you're like, what is the least calorie dense food I can eat? You start eating people love to eat watermelon because you can eat a ton of watermelon and it's really voluminous and it's 90% water, right? And you're like, oh yeah, you just pretend to be full.
Yeah,
Yeah, but even
it's almost like you've chewed more, so it's you've eaten more, but you really haven't because it's just so.
Yeah.
It's like styrofoam.
Yeah, so as I got closer and closer to that meat, I'd probably start switching stuff out. I wouldn't eat my Raihoko. I'd probably start eating things that really made me feel full and voluminous and whatnot. A lot of people like to eat or put artificial sweeteners in their water and stuff, so it feels like they're drinking something that has calories in it, or diet sodas and stuff like that.
But what about just the building muscle stage? If someone came in an average Joe and they were like, hey, I want to be a bodybuilder and I need to build muscle, what do you think would be the difference? So you'd say they'd be eating probably similar, right? Because you want them to get bigger. Mm-hmm. Would the workout be a lot different than a powerlifting workout?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. Because for a powerlifter, your ultimate goal, no matter what, is strength, right? Bodybuilder, It doesn't matter if you squat 1,000 or if you squat 400. If you look good, you look good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so for a bodybuilder, for a powerlifter, you're always going to come in and do your main lift first. You're always going to start, because when you have the most energy, pre-workout hits, whatever, you want to use that energy on whatever you're training that day. So your squat, bench, or your deadlift, right? And once you're done with that, you kind of move on to your accessories or stuff that's going to aid that lift. Okay. Does that make sense?
Because you don't want to be tired while you're doing your main lift, basically.
Yeah, I'm not going to do 4 sets of 15 on leg press and then, 100 lunges and then go try to squat 700 pounds.
Right.
It's not going to work. Right?
So what do you do right before you squat, as far as preparation? I mean,
to just go through your warm-ups. And that'll change as you get older and stronger too. And so for me right now, I like to start with something that just gets the body temperature warm, right? And so usually for me, that'll be maybe walking on an inclined treadmill for 10-15 minutes or stair climbers, just really anything. You can bike, get on elliptical, something for somewhere around that 10 to 15 minute mark where you're okay, I'm starting to build up a sweat, body temperature.
It's a heart rate thing too. You just want to get it going. Or?
Yeah, totally. Okay. You're kind of just telling your body hey, it's time to wake up. Let's go. And that's even kind of like a good, for me, like a little mental switch where it's like, okay, like I've been working, or I've been on my computer, or I've been doing this or whatever, and now I'm switching my brain over to like, okay, it's time to dial in. It's time to think about working out, time to like kind of put yourself mentally in there. Which for me is a good time to like, sometimes I'll listen to like Les Brown or Eric Thomas or like whatever, where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of dialing in, I'm getting focused, kind of tuning out everything else. This is my time, whatever. And so that's a big part of it. And then you go through, I'll go through like dynamic warm-ups, which are specific to me. So like, let's say I'm squatting today. You might do something like bird dogs to get like your thoracic spine warmed up, or do something to get your lower spine warmed up.
What are bird dogs? I don't know what that is.
Like just kind of think yoga-ish kind of stuff. You know, you're just kind of like moving your body. So maybe even sitting, or maybe you're sore.
After you've walked, right? Like you go and like do stair climbers or something, and then you move from that to dynamic stretching. Okay. Yeah, and so you're kind of just moving things through that range of motion that you're about to move through. Right? And so you're kind of just preparing it like, okay, we're stretching out the muscle, whatever. I like to do a little bit of unilateral movements too. Basically, like, you don't want one leg to be overpowering the other. So I like to kind of warm them up individually. Sure. So you might do like some step ups, like, I don't know, 20, 25 on each leg. Do you know what piston squats are? I can't do them. It's just like the one-legged squat, right? Yeah, you might do some piston squats to make sure like, okay, both legs are pretty balanced or whatever. You might even do like some banded RDLs, like banded deadlift kind of thing, or like some good mornings or whatever like for you needs to be warmed up. You just kind of do it very lightly, very minimally, but get your body ready to like make sure all your muscles are kind of waking up and ready to fire, right? Right. And that's specific to what your lift is going to be, right? You don't do like a full body thing every time. You do like, okay, I'm deadlifting today, I do my deadlift dynamic stretching. I'm benching, I do my benching dynamic stretching, right? Right. Yeah, because I don't need my triceps to be ready to go when I'm squatting, right? I mean, I guess I could. I don't think it hurt, but it's just kind of a waste of time. Yeah. And then how long do you think that takes from you walked into the gym till you're done dynamic stretching? Like you've done your 10, 15 minutes and then... Probably about 30 minutes total. So okay. 10, 15, and then maybe another 10, 15. Okay. And it just depends. If I'm really sore, might be a little longer. If I know I'm only working up to, like, and there's a difference. If I know I'm only coming in to squat 500 pounds, versus like today I know I'm going up to squat 700 pounds. There's a difference, right? Because if I'm only like squatting 5, I'm like, okay, I can come in. I just need to get the body moving. I'll be a little quicker, and let's just get going. But if I know I'm like, okay, I'm 4 weeks out from my meet, and I've got I don't know, 720 for a double today, then I need to dial in, right? Like I need to make sure everything's firing, because that makes me nervous just to think about, right? Like you get kind of nervous and you kind of excited, and okay, I need them, and you're so close to the competition that you're like, everything needs to. Right. So it kind of depends, but I'd say about from the time I walk in to the time I begin squatting, about 30 minutes. Okay. Do you do any static stretching? No, never static before. So everything is moving. Nothing is like, you're not like reaching your toes. You're not doing any of that kind of stuff. No. What about with bench? Do you do like shoulder stuff like this, or is it all dynamic as well? So everything I do before working out is always dynamic. Okay. The static, so there's a reason for that, because there's some things that you do want tight. Right. While you're lifting. Like for example, when you're squatting and deadlifting, you want your hamstrings pretty tight. And you want your lower back to have a certain stiffness to it. Sure. Right? Like, you don't want to come in loosey-goosey, ready to go play like a basketball game, and then you take your squat and you're like, you know, you just like can't tighten up. But you also don't want to be so stiff that you come down and you're like, okay, well, I just ripped my, like, adductor off my hip, right? Right. Or my pelvis or whatever. And so, yeah, you just kind of want to get it ready to go. But I like to do it always dynamic. Do you do static after, or do you ever do static? A little bit of static after. I'll never
there's certain things I won't statically stretch. Like I don't really statically stretch my hamstrings.
Okay.
I don't feel like they need it. But
what,
like,
do you not have tight hamstrings, or like do you don't think that most people should do that? Like if I have tight hamstrings, should I do that?
there are other ways. Every muscle is different, right? Genetically, they are different. Like for example, your hamstrings are formed with a lot more type 2B muscle fiber than I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure than any other muscle in your entire body. Meaning like it is very explosive, it's very twitchy, and it makes very, very hard, fast contractions, right? Mm-hmm. And so to stretch that out statically, doesn't always make a lot of sense if you're trying to do something that is explosive, right?
Sure.
Like if you're a cross country runner, you go static stretch your hamstring, it's probably not going to hurt something because it never needs to like really fire hard, right? Mm-hmm. Going on a run doesn't matter. But there are certain things that you want to keep that tightness and explosiveness, and others you don't. And part of that is like I honestly don't have a lot of research to back that up, but it's something that like over the years I've done it, mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't really want to stretch this. And I think, you kind of want to stretch that. And,
do you roll out?
A lot of foam rolling. I'll actually use what's called a geisha, which is basically like a really heavy metal pipe that you actually like lay on yourself. Like you lay on your quads, or you'll have someone like roll it onto your back and your hamstrings and your glutes and everything. Uh-huh. And it's kind of like foam rolling, but you get to relax. So instead of using the weight of your body.
Okay.
Yeah, so like the geisha kind of being like, so foam rolling, you use the weight of your body to massage your leg, right? Or whatever you're foam rolling. Mm-hmm. But this is a way, the only problem with that is like, even if you use something like a PVC pipe or something pretty hard, you always kind of tense up for it. Right? You're kind of like, your quads are really tight. You're like, kind of just, you're kind of even flexing your quad a little because you're not trying to. But if you take this heavy pipe, still doesn't weigh as much as you do, and you roll it on there, you're completely relaxed. Uh-huh. You just let it sit. And sometimes we'll even put it on one spot. You just kind of like slowly roll it out. Mm-hmm. So I'm really big on that. I'll do that a little bit before and after
So that's
workouts.
Part of like the dynamic part?
Mm-hmm.
So you do like 10-15 minutes walking, something to just get your heart rate up. You go to dynamic, maybe foam rolling or the geisha.
Yeah, usually the geisha or the foam rolling will usually be the last thing I do before I start the lift. And sometimes what I'll even do is like today, for example, I finished all my dynamic. I started squatting, mm-hmm. and then I was like, ooh, groin and quads feel pretty tight. So I took the geisha, did a little bit onto my quads, took the warm up again, and was like, okay, that seems pretty good. Mm-hmm. But maybe like if my low back felt really tight, I'd have somebody like kind of roll it on my back, and then you try it again, and you're like, there we go. Mm-hmm. Now I'm feeling right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you kind of just do it as is. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's kind of just what I've done. And then maybe you'll do it a little bit after too, just to kind of.
Do you do like a cool down? Do you go like on another walk or anything like that after?
Yeah. So I'll usually like eat and then go and walk. And then usually like another 10 or 15 minutes of some kind of like kind of slower cool down, like let the body kind of calm down, give it a little food so you can get the blood sugar up and going again. Because if you eat and that food's digesting, it needs a place to go, right? So the second you eat and that sugar's coming into your blood, insulin comes in, and the insulin will put it wherever it needs to, right? And so for that short time after you're working out, it starts to push it back into your muscle cell. But throughout the day, if you're just sitting or doing nothing, it'll push that same glucose really wherever, maybe into your liver, maybe into fat cells, maybe some into muscle. But if you're moving, it starts to put it more into your muscle cell. Mm-hmm. And so it's always kind of like, if you're not recovering great, try eating and just like going on a walk or moving.
So you eat like immediately after, like mm-hmm. while you're still at the gym?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I'll even just like come home quick and eat and then just go on a walk mm-hmm. or something. Or sometimes I'll bring like a mixture of dextrose and protein and salt. and drink it, which doesn't taste super great, but like you just drink it just because it's like, I know I sweated a lot. I need to replace some, electrolytes and and dextrose, out of every sugar there is that will spike your insulin the quickest, which, people have like a really negative, attitude towards insulin. Like it's bad, like it stores fat, which is true, but it's also the most anabolic / anti-catabolic substance we know of, right? So if you are trying to grow muscle, you really need to take advantage of being able to spike your insulin. Because basically like for example too, going back on somebody that might not be recovering well from their workouts, sometimes what keeps them from recovering is being hypoglycemic. And so when they're working out, their blood sugar drops down really quick and they get very catabolic, and their cortisol starts shooting up, right? And they break down muscle faster than what they should. And so to basically counteract that, you can have somebody just even sip on dextrose while they're working out, like dextrose salt, maybe a little citric acid to help it get in there. But what that'll do is raise your insulin, which forces that cortisol down and actually just prevents muscle breakdown. For most people, I don't think that's really a big deal. But if you're hypoglycemic, that can be a really big deal. Right. Because you might be that much more sore. Or like if you break down a whole bunch of extra muscle fiber that you shouldn't have, then you're just not going to be able to recover as well for the next one. Right. So by preventing it in the first place, get a little bit more of that MRV.
So we kind of walk through a little bit. Like you come in, you warm up, you do dynamic, maybe foam rolling, maybe the geisha. And then the actual workout, like what is that process like if you're on a specific day? Like let's say you're doing a squat.
So it'll depend on how close to competition I am. That really is always kind of like is the answer to that, is like where are you in regards to your next competition, because it should always be revolved around like what your goals are and what your needs are. So for me today, I had a heavier squat. So like for me, what I can recover from is usually somewhere around 10 sets of squats per week. And so I'll split that up into 2 workouts. Okay. One will be a competition style squat. And that's usually 10 to 12. It can vary a little bit. And so like for today, I had my top set, 640 pounds for 5 reps. And then I'll usually do, like, if I have a heavy set, I'll do what's called back down sets, where you drop it somewhere between 10 and 15% of that weight. So somewhere around, I don't know, like 570 to 580, right? And I'll continue to finish my workout with like a drop set. So then I did another 4 sets of 5 at like 577 or something like that today. And then I got my total 5 sets, right? And so since I'm further away from competition right now, I'm 14, just a little over 14 weeks out, right? Yeah. So not quite in that like peaking stage of it yet. Yeah. So I only am doing like 10 to 12 sets of squats. And I have more work on my accessories after. So I did like 5 sets of leg press, a little bit higher rep. I did split squats, I did lunges, and I did glute ham raises. And then that was it for today. Okay. And so it's like a total of like 20 sets of accessories, and then only 5 sets of the main lift. Right. So that there's a little bit more on the accessory side than the main lift right now. Right. And then that's kind of like the general outline of what my workouts will be. Like tomorrow I'm benching, off the top of my head, I think I have like, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 sets of bench, probably anywhere between 5 and 8 sets of bench. Bench you can do a little bit more of and recover a little bit better, just because I can't bench as much as I can squat, right? So it's not damaging me quite as much. Sure. And then I'll have something like probably 20 to 30 sets total of accessories after.
Even within a workout though, like you have 5 sets of squats, do you have to work yourself up by squatting lighter to get to those 5 sets?
Yeah.
So you like have like
that takes a long time.
Okay, so like if you're doing, I don't remember the numbers that you said, but like in the 500s for your squats, and you've got those big 5 sets that you're gonna do. Are you doing like a bunch of like, you know, no weight and, you know, just like a plate on each side?
Yeah, like what do the warm-ups look like?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so that's a good... So when you get really close to like a meet, right? So my last heavy squat before the last meet I did was 738 pounds. And from the time I started my warm-up to the time I squatted 738 was 2 hours.
Okay.
Like, that takes forever.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Because
you're waiting forever in between them.
Yeah, because at that point you're like, I want to space out. Like, I don't want to, like, because in a meet you get 3 attempts, right? Mm-hmm. And from one attempt to the next is about 10 minutes. And so you're trying to get your body used to like 10-minute breaks, which is a long time. And
are you doing just one?
Mm-hmm.
So you go and like, well, even in the warm-ups?
No. So warm-ups, like for today, for example, I'll take the bar. I think I did it, I don't know, somewhere between 10 and 15. You're just kind of getting a feel for it. And you're like, okay, quads are kind of tight. Roll out my quads. I use what kilo calibrated plates, right? And so they're 25 kilo plates. They're like, so I'll throw that on. And so that's 110 pounds. So I'll go from, the squat bar weighs 55 pounds. So I'll go from 55 to 165 pounds. I'll take that maybe for 10. Mm-hmm. And then I'll throw on another red plate, which is the 25 kilo plate.
Are you explosive at this point? Or is it more of like a stretch or what? You're trying to move it fast?
You're kind of going from slow to trying, and then you kind of feel it where your body's like, okay, I'm warmed up. And then you're trying to be as quick as you can.
Okay.
Yeah, so
this is super interesting to me, so.
Yeah, so I'll go from like that 165 pounds, throw on another red plate, get up to 275 pounds. I might only take that for like 5 or 6 because now you're starting to feel like a little bit warm. Try to hit those as quick and explosively as I can. I'll throw on another red plate, which is up to 385 pounds. Hit that maybe for 5. Then I went up to 496 pounds, which is another red plate. And then at that point, I start making a little bit smaller jumps because it starts getting a little bit heavier. So it went from 496. I think I did that for, I don't know, 5-ish or something.
How much time's in between these, you think?
Somewhere between like maybe 5 and 8 minutes.
Okay.
You know, we're because like from the bar to 155 is probably like a minute. And then you kind of go like maybe 2 or 3, and then you just kind of take it as you go.
As it gets heavier, your weighting gets longer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Sense. And then I think my last warm-up was like 584 pounds, I think. And then I went up to 640. And so that last one was only, you know, like a 55-pound jump or whatever. And then got that top set in, made the back downs, get the accessories.
The back downs. Is that just like a drop set? Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. I remember you mentioned that earlier, but so you're just like, is that without rest?
Oh no, yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, so you hit the top set, you know, get the 5 reps in, and then you're just going. If you're focused on your strength, which today is more of a strength day, it's a little heavier, not as many repetitions. You never really want to push your rest time. When you're ready to go, you're ready to go. If it's 5 minutes, that's great. If it's 3, that's great. If it's 8, that's fine too. Mm-hmm. There are some times where I'm like, okay, 2 minutes. You know, once the timer goes off, we're going again. But when it gets heavy, it gets you don't want to go when you're not ready, or you might, you know, make mistakes because you're still kind of breathing hard, and then you're not bracing well, and then you know, you kind of mess up your squat, and injuries can happen.
You've been injured before, right? Didn't you hurt your back in high school or something?
Yeah, I've had a couple injuries. Yeah, a little bit with my back. Yeah, just kind of small things here and there. But I ended up getting a fracture in my spine once. I've broke my pelvis like 1.5 years ago.
Oh dang. Powerlifting?
Yeah. It just it was it's called a Convulsion fracture. That doesn't sound right. Really drawing a blank. It's where your muscle pulls off a part of the bone. And so the tendon pulled off a chunk of the pelvis. And so it's like, it could be a lot worse. Like, it wasn't like this break all the way through the pelvis. It ripped off. And and whatever. But it's, you know, it's pretty painful. Everything else I think has been small. Like I've torn my groin, my other side of my groin once. Pretty small stuff though. Like nothing that's been like super, super horrible, I'd say.
Do you do recovery stuff outside of the gym that you haven't already mentioned?
Yeah. So I actually have a massage therapist.
Okay.
Shout out Jenny Draper.
Jenny.
Yeah. She, so I do trade work with her. She's one of my clients. And she does like strongman and powerlifting at the same time, which is nuts.
Yeah, man.
She does really well though. But then, yeah, so I'll do massage work. I'm really, really big into massage work. Massage work can really be really helpful if you're trying to get the best performance you can. Because a lot of these times, like when people think they have bad knees or a bad back, they're actually just like muscular imbalances, which just need to be fixed. And a combination of like, you know, physical therapy and massage work can really do wonders that way. Other than that, I'm not big into ice bathing. Pretty against ice bathing, actually.
Like you don't like it or you don't think it's good?
I don't think it's good. So, and it depends on the circumstance, because like if you're in the middle of the CrossFit Games and I think they have like 3 or 4 days back to back, right?
Yeah.
That you got to do it, right?
Yeah.
If it's something where you're like, I need to be better by tomorrow, sure. But as a consistent thing, so when you freeze your body, you know how we were talking about mTOR pathway and trying to keep that open for recovery, it shuts that down immediately. It just, everything basically gets shut down. So any recovery actually stops. If you have an injury and you're trying to reduce inflammation, it can be helpful. But if you're using it as just like, I'm doing this 2 or 3 times a week to help my recovery, not a good idea. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you do like sauna or anything like that?
Sometimes I'll do like before I work out, if I'm feeling relatively sore, I will do like a hot bath. I'll get into a hot bath for 10 or 15 minutes just to kind of warm up the body. I don't think sauna is a bad idea either. But the cryotherapy, the ice baths, not a fan of. Not a fan of personally. Gotcha.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I guess to kind of close it off, you got the thing coming up, right? Mm-hmm. Can people tune into that?
Yeah, it'll be live streamed. I don't know.
What's it called again?
The Showdown Meet.
Okay. And that's the one you're competing in how long again?
14 weeks, 98 days. Something like 98 days. It's September 26th, though. It's the last Saturday of September.
Okay. And how can people support you? I know that you are an affiliate with supplements, so they could buy your supplements and your gym. Like, just anyone that's listening to this that kind of wants to support you, what can they go to?
Yeah, so, no, good question. So Bucked Up, they sponsor me. They help me out getting competition ready and stuff. So anytime they buy Bucked Up, if you use my code that is on my page, it's just JKB.
Okay. BuckedUpSupplements.com.
I think it's just BuckedUp.com.
BuckedUp.com, JKB. They can get like a discount.
Yeah, it's either, I think it's like 20% off. Or something like that, 15 or 20% off.
And they can go to your Instagram, which is
JKB_43.
Nice. Okay, and they can get all that information. Okay.
Yeah. I mean that's really about it. But yeah, if you're interested in getting stronger or want to go freaking play college sports, then hit me up.
Yeah, and so that's the other question. Your strength coaching.
Mm-hmm.
How do they go? How do they reach out to you for that? Where is it? Can they email you? Like if someone wants to get stronger with you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. So a lot of people just email me. It's jkb.43@outlook.com, or people just message me on Instagram. A lot of people just message me on Instagram.
And where is it located?
On my Instagram?
No, the gym.
Oh, Big Mountain Barbell is in Midvale. Like kind of Midvale, Murray area. It's just off the freeway on like 72nd. It's between 72nd and 78th on the west side of the freeway.
Cool.
It is a really freaking sweet gym.
Awesome.
If you ever get a chance, you should come by.
Yeah, no, I'm sure people reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate it, man. That's super fun. We got to do it again.